Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whoever is tuning in. And hello, Rihanna, how are you doing?
I am good. How are you, Inga?
I'm rocking awesome. Happy for the week that's starting. Lots to do still before Christmas, lots to manage. But well, hey, that's why when you love what you do, then work you have to do a lot. So you have to work hard, but the work is not hard work. It's
No,
well,
I I agree with you. I mean, I love what I do, but I've got to be honest. It's been I can say bang, 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 one after the other, and then as you know, I've not been well, and then recuperating and catching up with work. But I honestly cannot wait for the Christmas break to come, just to have
yeah.
some downtime, some self care, recharge the batteries, and then hit the ground running again.
Awesome. Christmas is coming soon, so you will not have to wait long.
Yeah.
In today's conversation, we will talk about why do people do stupid things at work. So we have been talking about performance management and how to manage performance, how to set their goals or milestones, and how to have engaging conversations. However, sometimes, unfortunately, it happens that people do stupid things at work. So let's talk about some examples that we have experienced, or managers that we are coaching and mentoring have experienced, and let's talk about the reasons why people do stupid things and how we can, as managers, as leaders, how we can ensure by following proper performance management process that we can eliminate. We cannot completely take out that people are human and sometimes they might do stupid things at work and we cannot predict it. But by following the performance management cycle and doing all the things properly, we can make sure that people are more aware what's expected. They know they are clear on the goals, they are clear on procedures, on the processes, on what's allowed and not allowed, and they can follow that.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got an example for you
Mhm.
already. So I think what makes it difficult is that as a leader or as a hiring manager, as a line manager, you can follow all processes and you make sure that your employees know in terms of what the objectives are, what they need to meet, etc. And it not only comes to in terms of what they need to meet in terms of performance, but it's also linked to in terms of if you are in certain roles within an organization, there's a certain trust and responsibility that goes with that position without saying. And you don't need that in your key performance objective to be set that out for you. And I've been thinking recently about this because I currently have a case where unfortunately we've had to go into a disciplinary investigation.
Mm.
And this is the individual's first job. So I think it's just pure naivety on the
Mm.
person's side, um, not realizing the repercussions of what can happen should they not follow, um, let's say, process or anything like that.
Mm.
Um, Unfortunately, with I can't go into much detail because the case is still carrying on right now. And what makes it difficult is that the outcome of whatever's going to happen is going to have an impact on this person's future career. And like I said, it comes back to the topic we had: why do people do stupid things? And I think in this individual's case, it has just been pure naivety, thinking and making the assumption he will get away with things and he won't be caught out. But if a hiring manager and a line manager do the onboarding properly, unfortunately, these things will get caught out. And as I said, in a performance objective, it's not always something you have to put down. It's inherently part of the position that you're going to go into, that
Mm.
certain things is linked to it. And I feel for this chap, but unfortunately, we're in investigations phase right now. It looks like it might go further, but we'll have to wait and see what the outcome of the investigation is.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think, to the youngsters out there watching and listening to us, um, think carefully about the repercussions, even if it's not in the objectives that's been set down for you.
Hmm.
Ask yourself, you know, even though it's not set down for me, what could it lead to if I transgress on this?
Yeah.
From that perspective. So that's one of the examples, which is quite recently, that I can share
Hmm.
with at this moment in time.
Yeah, as you mentioned before we started this conversation, that the person thought that they will not be discovered doing some wrongdoings of not following the process. However, it's not a great assumption to be working on or living by that. Hopefully, nobody will discover by January, and then in January I will smooth it out. That's not
Mm,
the right thing to do. And yes, sometimes even if the manager follows all the performance management cycle and the process, however, sometimes the employee might really behave stupidly and strangely.
mm,
Despite that you have onboarded them well, you have instructed them well, you have given them job description, you have talked through about milestones or objectives to achieve, but somehow they decide to do something silly which is not described anywhere, or which they have agreed and signed up that they will follow the process, which they don't. And then, unfortunately, there is part of performance management cycle when manager and hopefully with HR colleague support have to go into formal hearing, formal procedure, formal disciplinary procedure, which country by country might be slightly different, but there are
mm,
common steps to follow. And yes, it's not pleasant procedure. It's not pleasant for anyone. It's an kind of investigation at work, but it has to be done to make sure that we lead by example from manager's side as well, even if the employee is a well-performing employee. But if they have done something, if they have done some wrongdoing and not followed the process properly and have breached some of the rules, then manager has to show that this is not acceptable. Otherwise, if manager says, "Oh, okay, raise it. Let's not investigate it. Let's not talk about it. Let's kind of shuffle it under the carpet," then obviously people talk, and colleagues will know it, will know the situation, will find out it with the pint of beer, or with the glass of
mm,
wine, whatever, a cup of coffee, conversation, and they might think, if manager allows this to happen, then what else can we do? As employees sometimes are like children, they're testing out your borders. They are testing out what's allowed, what's not allowed, and what manager tolerates and what they don't tolerate. So, business leaders, team leaders, managers, we have to be we have to show our tough love to our
mm,
employees. And if somebody has done something wrong, then it has to be properly, the process of disciplinary has to be properly managed and properly followed. As I had once many years ago, I had challenge situation in one of the countries that I was responsible for. That employee, new hire, he came to the company, and he brought some customer data with him. In the flash drive, he brought customer data, and
mm,
it's not personal data, but it's some of the policies, some of the products that customers have brought, and he thought somehow, in his naivety, that this data could be used for our company, kind of tailoring products and tailoring services, which we reacted immediately that this
mm,
is not acceptable. We
mm,
can't use customer data like from competitor. We cannot bring it in. It's a breach of competition law. It's a breach of data protection law. It's a breach of many laws. And we had to initiate, and managing director of that country, he said, okay, maybe let's not raise the profile of the situation so high, as maybe let's deal with that quietly. Well, you cannot. Otherwise, other employees might think, if this new hire has done so, I can do it as well. So we had to follow proper kind of
mm,
disciplinary procedure, investigation, and proper interviews, and proper conclusions that this is breach of our responsibilities, and we cannot tolerate that in our company.
mm,
And we had to kind of finish our working relationship with this employee. So we had to do this despite that he was a great hire and he came with great experience in the market. He came with great knowledge about customers and products and with potentially great opportunities to rise and shine in our company. We had to manage proper investigation, disciplinary, and conclude that further working relationships together
Mm.
are possible. So yeah,
Yeah.
disciplinaries and this investigation sometimes is part of the process, and we have to do it as business leaders to lead by example and to show our colleagues, our employees,
Mm.
what's
Mm.
acceptable and what's not acceptable.
Yeah, no, I agree fully with you. Before we continue, I see we've got a comment there, and apologies, I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. Is it Gunas?
Yeah,
Thank you so much for the comment. And yes, we do try our best um, in bringing the information across to you. So it's much appreciated in terms of your comment to us.
yeah, thank you. As our purpose is to share as much as possible our knowledge, skills, expertise, tools, and strategies on performance management. And yes, your feedback is greatly appreciated, as that tells us that this is valuable, and we shall continue.
Yeah. Um, Inga, so coming back to what you were saying, and I really believe that's important that there's consistency.
Mm,
But if you switch it to the other side, because sometimes it's not always the employees that does stupid things. Sometimes it's line managers as well, and then um, and I think it's more along the lines of not gathering the correct information when they have the discussions, or thinking I I think this is a common one, but either like an employee really a lot, or the person, if they're in a sales role, they bring in quite a bit of revenue into the company.
mhm,
um, and then they decide that they're treating people differently, and it latches on to what you were talking about earlier in terms of the consistency,
yeah.
in that if you treat one employee in one manner, and a similar incident happens with another employee, you've
Mm,
got to be consistent in your approach, irrespective of how much you like that employee, and irrespective of how much income that person brings into the organization.
absolutely.
Because I think what we as business owners, leaders, hiring managers, line managers need to realize is that employees are the extension of our employment brand.
Mhm,
And ultimately, they represent the company out there.
mm,
But also, they're not going to know what they're doing is not entirely correct if we don't also nip things in the bud quite early. So the
yeah.
moment we see things as line managers, we should not be, and especially as leaders, we should not be scared of addressing those issues.
Mm,
One, it's helping us, but it's helping the employee as well before it gets to a point where it just becomes intolerable, and unfortunately you're going to start disciplinary action, which none of us really want to do.
absolutely.
So I think there's a lesson to be learned for leaders as well, in that we need to try, the moment we identify something, is nip it in the bud
Mm,
immediately. And
yeah.
that's where the continuous conversation comes in, when we spoke about having this continuous conversation with our employees. We don't need to wait till a performance review comes along.
Mm,
The moment we see maybe somebody's not doing so well in their job, let's go look at in terms of how can we help them, what steps we can put into place, than waiting for performance review and then giving them the bad news, and then going over to performance management and then putting a plan in place for them to meet objectives. And I think, and I know we termed our title this week in terms of the stupid things that people does.
mm,
But let's put it under that title.
yeah.
Yes, those are some of the stupid things that we as leaders do, in that
Absolutely.
we're too scared to nip things as quickly
Mm,
as possible in the bud. Yeah.
Absolutely. I like that you raised the challenge that sometimes it's not just employees who are doing stupid things or silly things at work, or naive or ridiculous things at work. Let's be straight. Sometimes it's leaders who do silly things, or by their not doing and not reacting, they behave silly and they
Mm,
behave inappropriate. And
mm,
um, as you mentioned, that if the leader notices that some employee is not doing something appropriately or as agreed or as expected, they need to take immediate action. They need to have immediate conversation with the employee, one-on-one conversation, and give, first of all, never assume
mm,
the employee wanted to do wrongdoing, that they wanted to misbehave. No, never. I always advise leaders, don't assume anything. Just go into conversation with open mind and start with open questions to explore, as maybe we have put our assumption on employee, and we cannot see wider than our assumption, and
mm,
employee might have had some reasons of some particular behaviors which we don't know if we don't ask. I had
mm,
recently, I had one new manager who just joined the company in one client's offices. He joined the company, and he got a new team, newly formed team. And he said that I will just observe at the beginning what employees are doing. He took the job descriptions. He read who is doing what and what each employee is doing. And after a couple of weeks, he came to me and he said, "You know, Inga, I think I need to fire 3 or 4 employees as they are not doing anything." I asked, what do you mean they're not doing anything? Like, I see that they are working there and they're obviously doing something.
yeah.
He said, no, 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 they are not doing anything. The value of their work is not valuable. I don't know actually what they are doing, but they're not doing anything that I would expect them to do.
Mm,
And I had a coaching mentoring conversation with this leader asking, like, tell me what they're expected to do. Do they know what they're expected to do? How have you told them to? And it appeared that this business leader, he assumes that employees need to know what he expects them to do, despite that previous business leaders' expectations might have been different. And
mm,
employees and this particular employee, he was following the previous business leader expectations because this new business leader hadn't had kind of introduction and expectations setting
mm,
conversations with his team, or he had, but didn't check the feedback and didn't check back whether employees have understood what's expected. And he immediately assumed that now this, and he mentioned 3 employees, these 3 employees, and particular this one, have to be fired. And
mm,
when we had this conversation step by step, I realized that actually these employees have been doing what they thought was expected of them, what they thought are their goals and focus, and there was mismatch that the new leader has not had expectations conversation and set the new goals what he wants them to focus on. So there was a mismatch that and I thought this new business leader, he was well experienced in industry, he was well experienced in his professional area, but I think he was not really so experienced in
mm,
having conversations and being a leader. He was an expert, he was a manager,
mm,
came from different cultures, well, from another country where things are done differently. So it took some time to make sure that this business leader is aware that there's performance management cycle and there are tools and strategies that you can use and the toolbox that you can use to engage, to focus, and to help these employees to deliver. So yeah, sometimes it's business leaders or managers or leaders as such, uh, they are doing silly things by not doing something. And this is also like when you are not doing something, it's called doing nothing. It's also doing silly stuff.
yeah, no, that's true. Um, and I don't want people out there who just focusing on, leaders and hiring managers and line managers. It's just that I think you realize more and more there's a big role and responsibility on the shoulders of line managers in that they have to educate the employees. And I'm going to take it back to the example I used earlier on, this poor person that is now going through a disciplinary investigation. And as I said, I just think it's naivety. It's probably his first position, not really knowing what to expect from the business world. And for me, there's a massive responsibility on the shoulders of leaders to educate, the youngsters coming into the organization for the first time. And I think it comes back to this whole mindset of younger generation joining the organization. Um, their expectations are slightly different from our expectations.
Mm.
Also, in terms of we are quite, I wouldn't say set in the ways that we do stuff, but we have a certain process we used to follow. We used to following that process, and we automatically assume that new employees coming into the organization would understand our processes.
Yeah.
But also, having said that, you kind of people that's been in previous jobs um, would probably adapt easier because they know more or less what to expect.
Mm.
Whereas somebody with this is their first job experience, they don't know that.
Mm.
And they come in almost, I would say, with a blindfold on. And
Yeah.
that's where our responsibility then comes in to help them along the way so that they don't then end up making silly mistakes as
Mm.
the new employee on the block.
Absolutely.
We need to help them to avoid making those silly mistakes. Yes, if we've explained everything to them and they have given an indication they understand and there's no issues and they go and do it, then okay, fine. Then we don't have a choice. But we cannot make the assumption, like you said, that they know what
Mm.
we want them to know.
Absolutely. And that's so in a way, performance management starts even before setting the goals and expectations and milestones, even before talking about what we want to achieve. It
Mm,
starts with onboarding. How do
yeah.
we onboard people? How do we help them integrate in our organization? How do we make sure that they understand where to search for information? They understand the policies, procedures.
Mm,
Though I hate these words, policies and procedures, that's not my thing. But however, they need to be in place, and
mm,
people need to be aware of them, and they need to follow them. But to follow them, they need to know that these policies and procedures exist, and people need to know where to go for information, whom to contact, how to behave, how not to behave. So, and yes, you are absolutely right, spot on, Rihanna, that sometimes well-experienced business leaders, they somehow forget or don't think about it, that somebody new and fresh from the market, they actually, even if they are not youngsters and just start
mm,
their career, even if they have experience in other companies, our company is different and
mm,
procedures might be different. So it's good to remind and good to talk through what is our company culture, and what we focus on, what's expected, what's not, because people come from different cultures, environments, and different businesses they have worked
yes.
on. So it's also important to onboard experienced business leaders. As sometimes, when speaking to managing directors or CEOs of the companies, they say, "Well, I'm hiring a board member. I'm hiring a director. Why do I need to invest time in onboarding them? They
Mm,
should know what to do. They should know what's expected. They should know how to follow the policies and procedures, and they should know how to not misbehave." And then I challenge the CEOs and business owners and leaders of the companies, saying that, well, hey, they have never worked in your company. They don't know how you think. They
mm,
don't know what you expect. They don't know what exactly you expect from this role in
mm,
business.
mm,
They don't know
mm,
internal policies and procedures, and what's allowed, what's not allowed. What's allowed in one company is not allowed in another company. So it's as many companies we have in the market, as many cultures we have, and what's written, what's not written, what's expected, what's not. So even the most senior business leaders, they need to be onboarded well, so that business owner or HR or whoever is managing
mm,
onboarding
mm,
understand whether they understand performance management,
mm,
whether they will know how to behave, whether they will know that their employees need to be given feedback and set targets and like all the other good things that need to
Yeah,
happen in the
yeah,
company.
yeah,
Yeah, we have to onboard properly, not only younger generation people who are having the first job with our company, but also senior business leaders.
yeah. No, I agree fully with you on that. And I think, if you look, we're doing these discussions now for the last few weeks. And I think our viewers will see you and I agree a lot on things. We
Hmm.
tend not to disagree about things. But I think it's because you and I come from both of the same mindset,
Hmm.
in that we're there to help both leaders and employees at the same time.
Yes.
And it's quite important for us to see that companies flourish, but through the employees. So it's not that Inga and myself always agree on stuff. It's just
Hmm.
that coincidentally, this topic I think is passionate for both of us. And
Yeah.
ironically enough, we try and not prepare ahead of time on our conversations just to see whether someone will come with a different point of view. But funny enough, in the conversation itself, like now, we see that our mindsets are similar and we tend to agree on the same things,
Hmm.
from that perspective. But yes, we will try and see one day we can come up with a topic where Inga and I disagree
Yeah.
or come from different points of view at
Let's
least.
Yeah. And together, by the way, together we have more than 50 years of
Yes.
leadership and HR business partnering experience. So that's why, by the way, we came together to share this experience,
Mm,
knowledge, expertise, and tools and tactics. As you mentioned, Diana, we are passionate about helping people and helping business leaders to succeed and shine and deliver, and helping organizations to have great performance culture where everyone feels valued and everyone contributes well towards the common strategy and business can achieve the planned
mm,
business goals. So, and thank you everyone who comments, who asks, who shares feedback, and thank you everyone who is sending questions in between these live weekly sessions, as that helps us to think and choose the next topic for the next week. So please continue doing that. And if you are watching replay, then feel free to ask any question as well, or to share the feedback or comment or anything that helps us to kind of pick up topics for the next week's Facebook Live, for next week's conversations, or just hear that it's valuable. So thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for your comments and feedback. And thank you, Rihanna. And we'll meet next week again.
yes, thank you. And thank you to the viewers and have a good week. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Absolutely. Bye.